You're listening to Cash and Sass. I'm Lisa Marie, your go-to gal for all things money. As the Sassy Wealth Queen and the brains behind the Sassy Wealth Coach, I'm here to take you on a thrilling ride from the financial chaos to sassy and sexy money. Hi, my sassy friend. Welcome back to another episode of Cash and Sass. My name is Lisa Marie. I am the Sassy Wealth Queen and the brains behind this podcast and Transcendent Wealth Company. And with me today, I have Matthew Fornaro, and he has been a business law attorney serving South Florida, including Coral Springs and Parkland, since 2003. Before starting his law firm, he was an attorney at two prestigious Am Law 200 law firms focusing on civil litigation. He assists new business owners in choosing and drafting all legally required documents. And as a small business owner himself, he is proud of his representation of small businesses. And I think it's really important that we have these conversations because as small businesses and entrepreneurs, we sometimes don't think about the legal issues or the legal things that could come up that can affect our cash flow and our money management. So welcome, Matthew. Thank you for being on my show. And just for us to start, can you give us a little bit of a background as far as your money journey? And, what we were talking about before was like how you were making sure you budgeted and you paid attention to your cash flow.
Sure. Well, first, thanks for having me, Lisa Marie. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.
I guess for my business cash flow, it started when I started my own business almost 10 years ago. So there's a big difference between money showing up every 2 weeks in your bank account when you work versus you have a business and you have to go get the money yourself and budget it out and do everything. So my journey was kind of a process of elimination, learn on the fly kind of thing, because I didn't really have a huge business background when I started out my own law firm and my own business. So I kind of had to learn everything as I went. And as part of that was learning that, when I started out, obviously my revenue was way lower than it is now. So my expenses were pretty high for my startup and everything and getting started. So I had to figure out how to budget my limited amount of income at that time versus my expenses. And now, fortunately, I have more money, so my budgeting is a little easier. But that was a journey that I basically was trial and error and figured out. And then, later on, once I figured out how business works and I did a couple programs on how business functions, I was better able to figure out how to budget my money and allocate everything and pre-plan and plan in case of in case of events or anything to better manage the money and cash flow in my business.
So, what's one thing that you did that helped you better plan and prepare for some of the events that may come about?
Well, one of the main things I did was I kind of wrote out, as part of my written business plan, I also wrote out my budget per month of what I had as far as like insurance, rent, uh, like internet, phone, all those expenses, and I had to keep track of that, and I still do. And it was easier to figure out what fat can be trimmed, what's overhead, what's necessary, what I'm doing that's not really like part of the mission or whatever. So it's easier to keep track of everything once I wrote down my budget, went over my budget, figured out that I need X amount of dollars for every month in order to cover that budget. And then it was a lot easier to go from there.
Yeah, because that's one of the things I tell everybody all the time is, the first step has to be putting your putting the information on paper, the
Yeah.
numbers. You got to know your numbers, and you even said, if it's aligned with the mission, and looking at it. Once you look at it on paper, you can look and say, okay, with what I'm spending here or there, is this aligned with my goals, my values, my mission? And if it's not, okay, what do you do to change it? Right. And I think that's, a lot of people think that a budget is to restrict, and it's not. I call it a money roadmap. And I tell people all the time, if you're listening for the first time, this may actually resonate. If you're not, you've heard me say it several times. So I'm going to say it again. A money roadmap, if you go in some in a direction that you don't know where you're going, what is the first thing we do? We do a GPS, right? tell us directions. Money roadmap is basically the same thing. It's helping us get to where it's helping us do the things we want to do with our money, the goals and the values and our destination where we're heading. So why wouldn't we use a money roadmap to help us? You're not going to get in your car and just drive willy nilly to some place you don't know where you're going, right? Without a GPS. And so, when you look at it as a GPS, it really isn't to restrict you, it's to help you and support you get where you want to go. With your money and do the things that you want to do with your money, right? Whether that's vacation or hiring a team leader or a team lead person or, hiring a VA or, some whatever that may be, right? Increasing your the money you're paying yourself or, whatever that may be. So I really think it's important that um we talk about the budgeting, we talk about the money so that people understand it's not a restriction and it's not just for broke people.
Yeah.
I'm not broke and I use my money roadmap daily.
Mhm.
Okay. It is a tool. And I will admit sometimes life happens and I don't. And when I don't go to it, that is when things get messed up. I 9 out of 10 times I'll forget something. So when I use that tool and I go to that tool, it helps me make sure that the money is going where it needs to go and where I want it to go. Um, and it helps me stay on top of things.
No, it does. And I mean, it's like you said, I mean, it's the roadmap as far as what you do and can't do regarding your business, as far as your budgetary, I don't want to say restrictions, but your budgetary guide. And
Hmm.
it helps you, figure out what your bottom line is. I mean, if you don't know how much money you're spending, then how do you know what to do with the money you're making?
Right. Right. Absolutely. Knowledge is power. So you've got to have the knowledge in order to make um, uh, decisions and then be also very knowledgeable decisions or decisions that are actually going to help you further in your business. I think that's truly, truly important. What are some of the things that you see from a legal perspective that small business owners may not think about that it's a good reason to make sure you have, I actually had someone ask me this. They said that they had a person who was in a bigger business and they were talking about how they put money up into a separate account for legal issues, for attorney fees,
Hmm.
just in case they got sued or whatever, something may happen. And they asked, does anyone do this? Does small business owners do it? And I chimed in and I said, I didn't at one point, and then something happened. And let me just tell you, I now do.
Hmm.
We may not have to put as much money as some of the bigger corporations do. And just because you're a small business owner does not mean some type of legal issue will not come up. That's just not true. And thinking that will get you in a lot of trouble.
Hmm.
There are people out there who may decide they're going to come after you or they want to break a contract, and even if your contract is airtight, you still are going to need an attorney to help you fight that if they decide to fight it. So even if your contract is great, you're still going to be paying some kind of attorney fees. Trust me on this. Been there, done that. it so it just does, I recommend, and I told him, I said, I recommend, look, because it may be that you have someone hire an attorney to look at your contract.
Hmm.
Those are still legal fees. So having money put aside into a separate account and it be in there so that if something happens or you decide you want to hire an attorney to look at your contracts or, look at your terms and conditions, whatever it is, then that is, I think it's important. So can you talk to my listeners from your perspective of what you've seen and what they can do so it's not stressful or
Sure.
as stressful.
Sure. I mean, obviously, your business is your livelihood. It's not a hobby. It's not, something you do for fun. So you want to take it as seriously and professionally as possible. So as part of that, you have to understand that in order to have a successful business, you don't do it by yourself. No matter how small your team is, you try to have like a cadre of professionals who help you so they worry about the other stuff and then you worry about the business stuff and worry about your business either succeeding or failing, not worrying about whatever. So that's why I encourage all my clients to, have a business attorney standing by ready to assist them, because you never know when they're going to be needed. But at the same time, I also tell them they need an accountant standing by ready to help them with their accounting needs. Don't do your own accounting. And the same thing with other professionals that help you, like a banker. Make sure you have a relationship with your bank, not just, you show up at the deposit window and that's it. Like, actually, get to know a banker at your bank. So that way, if you ever run into money issues or anything like that, they can help you. Same thing with, like, if you're doing e-commerce or you're doing something on the internet, whatever, make sure you have your IT person, your web person, make sure that, they're on your team and you have a relationship with them. So then that way you have a group of professionals who help you focus, or how they focus on the collateral issues, and then you focus on your business issues. And as part of that, you need to budget for that in your business plan and ultimately in your business budget, because that is a necessity. That's not a luxury in this day and age. You need that as part of your business.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I tell my clients all the time, say, look, and I tell people who aren't my clients, whether it's me or another fractional CFO, you need a fractional CFO. And the reason why is because they're going to look at the whole big picture, right? Where it comes to your money to help you reach those goals and those things that you want to do. They're literally going to help you manage that money, and they're going to basically be your partner in that. And at the same time, if you've got a certain amount of money, you're going to want a certified financial planner. You're going to want an attorney. You're going to want a tax accountant or accountant to prepare your taxes. Please don't prepare your own taxes, okay? Because there are things that change day to day. There are laws that change with that, and just like with with a fractional CFO, we're going to be able to see things that you may not, and the attorneys have to. Um, stay up on the laws as far as legal laws. The CPAs and enrolled agents have to stay in charge, up in with the changes on those. So I tell people all the time, yes, some of the things may overlap on what some of it we do, but like I don't prepare taxes, right?
Mhm.
I have a team that does some bookkeeping. So therefore, you can have me and my team do that and the fractional CFO, but I'm a fractional CFO. So I myself am not a bookkeeper. I do have the experience in it, so therefore I can oversee it because I do have an accounting degree, right? I come from that background.
Mm.
And but you're not going to want legal advice from me. Promise.
No.
Okay? You don't. I have a business attorney. And I learned the hard way,
Mhm.
okay? And thankfully I was already networking with that person, and he is my business attorney. He is who I go to have someone review my contracts. He's who I go to for the certain things. And you want to have someone in your corner, like Matthew was saying, because they're just really really important. What are some of the things though that you have seen? I don't know, that come about that they may end up needing you for, or like you've been able to help them avoid uh, extreme costs later.
Yeah, it's a lot of proactive activity, particularly at the startup of your business. And then if, you come to me and you already started your business, it's kind of resetting, reevaluating things and putting things in place that help you avoid problems later on. It's a lot of making sure, like, you have a written business plan, making sure you have governing documents. Like, if you're a corporation, you have to make sure you have bylaws. If you're an LLC, you have to make sure you have an operating agreement, and you have to make sure that you comply. No matter how silly you think it is, you have to comply with legal formalities and things like that. So then that way, if anyone ever challenges you or whatever, you can show that, this business isn't just your alter ego or a hobby. It's a legitimately run business. And that way you get the protection of having the business between you and, whoever is making claims against you, whoever is saying something. So a lot of the issues that come my way are things that could have been prevented by doing action, particularly early on, with those documents that I said, and like I said, complying with corporate formalities and making sure when you deal with people or deal with other entities, you have contracts in place. You just don't do things like willy nilly on a handshake or whatever. You have everything in place. So then that way, if there's an issue, you have documents that say what you do to solve that issue, as opposed to, having to figure it out yourself or go to court to figure it out. So that's a lot of the proactive advice, to avoid a lot of situations. And then we get into the reactive stuff where the situation already started and we have to try to fix it sooner than possible and try to fix it as reasonably as possible to try to avoid a huge legal battle or a huge thing. So that's one of the things that I do when it's a reactive situation is I try to get with my client and try to have them make intelligent business decisions regarding, ultimate costs and ultimate issues that affect their business. Like, for instance, you know, you run your business and that's what you do. You don't professionally go to court and be a witness, or you don't professionally do whatever. So what can we do to have you just focus on your business and not spend time doing like this lawsuit or dealing with legal issues? And so there's a cost benefit analysis there that a lot of clients, you know, I try to make them realize, and I think I do a good job of it, but some people they just don't learn. They'd rather, oh, we're in a lawsuit, let's fight or whatever. They don't understand that not only are you laying out the money for your attorney and for your court costs and everything, but you're costing yourself revenue from your business, which is almost as important, if not more important, than the money you're spending is the money you're not making. So that's why one of the things I encourage my clients to do is, like I said, make smart business decisions so that you can focus on your business and not have to worry about the legal issues.
Yeah, and I mean, and I'll be honest, I didn't think I would have to worry about it. And in 2023, I got a rude awakening, and I did, and um, and that was even with the contract. And he's, you're right. It's I not only because of the stress it caused, and and like we ended up settling, which is fine, but that was to the point to where it was because even though my contract was airtight, it was we could have kept fighting, and if we kept fighting, it was going to cost me more time, which was costing me money from me making money, right? Because that's where my focus subconsciously, that's where my focus was, right?
Mhm.
And paying the attorney. And he did the same thing. He and I talked, and he said, "Look, yes, this is where we're at." And and I said, "Fine, as long as this, and this." And he said, "Okay, I'm going to even do one better. I'm adding this." And he did, and we settled. But the stress from it, because there were some things that weren't as airtight as they should have been, learned the hard way. And I didn't have money put aside for legal things that may pop up. That caused a lot of undue stress on my part. Now, I have since then corrected the situations, right? I've made sure my contracts were reviewed. I made sure they were updated. He reviewed them. I made sure we got airtight. And then I made sure that I put money aside for these types of things because, you just don't know. And in today's age, you want to make sure that you're protecting your business. And on the LLC part, I'm going to go on. There are some states that are easier than others when it comes to your LLC and the governing bylaws. Like South Carolina, I think is probably one of the easiest, especially if you're a sole owner. Um, my bylaws are really easy. It's just me. And
Mhm.
I don't even have to file something every year. But you need to check with your attorney because every state is different. Literally every state is different. They are not the same. There are some that you are required to file updated things every year. And I just think that that's really, really important that we make sure you understand just because what I don't have to do, I'm in a state, I looked it up and I had my attorney help me look it up and make sure. And in my state, I'm doing what's required. Some states require more. And so you just have to make sure that you're following those guidelines and that you're doing, because again, like you said, it's proactive, right? And in the long run, how much money it could save you. Whereas if you don't do these things, how much money it can cost you. Because if you're not doing these things, then technically the court can come back and say you're not truly an LLC and you're not protected.
No, it's true. I mean, you have to do those things. And obviously, it's totally 50 states objective because each state has their own rules that govern their corporations. I mean, there's no
And
national.
some are worse than others.
Yeah. There's some
Some
that
are
are,
like,
yeah,
do you want me to do you want me to give you my next of kin as well?
yeah,
Some
there's
of them
some,
are a lot more extreme than others. That's why it's really important. And that's also why I stress, and I'm sure you're going to, please don't commingle your funds, because that is actually one of the first things that can be basically make that LLC null and void, is if your funds are all in one account. And because then to them, you're not treating it as a true business.
that's true. I mean, that's what I was talking about with corporate formalities. I mean, you have to have, your annual shareholders meeting, whether it's just yourself having the meeting, but you got to record to do it. You can't commingle funds. You can't use your business account to buy personal things. You can't use your personal things to buy business stuff. And, it's just running things above board and keeping up with formalities. That way you avoid situations.
Yep. And accidents are going to happen, and there's ways that you can I'm going to be honest, I've accidentally pulled out my business debit card instead of my personal debit card and swiped. Okay, it's happened.
Mhm.
It doesn't happen often, but I have done it by accident, not thinking, and pulled out the wrong one. That's when, and then I'm able to go, oh, wait, okay, my business needs to pay, my personal needs to pay my business back for that, because
Mhm.
that wasn't supposed to go there. And I do, and I make sure it's notated correctly so it shows up on the books correctly. There are ways to do that. What he's talking about is, oh, I don't have enough money in my personal account, so I'm going to pay it out of my business. You can't, no,
No, no,
no.
no, no.
But a lot of people do it. I don't know. I see it. A lot of people do it, and they don't. They're like, well, it's my business, so it shouldn't matter. Yes, it does, because long term, like you're talking about, if you ever end up in a lawsuit or someone comes sues your business, they can actually come after you personally. That LLC will not be able to protect you if you're doing that all the time, willy nilly, and and basically that means not being above board, not treating it as a true business.
No, that's correct. I mean, you're opening yourself up to liability because you're risking the corporate or LLC protection by you not complying with the rules and laws, and just by, half-ass doing it. And then, you're going to run in a situation where there's going to be a tax situation, there's going to be a legal situation, there's going to be a regulatory situation where someone's going to look at your records and be like, well, you know, you have a corporate account here that's supposed to be doing corporate things. Why are you shopping at the grocery store when that has nothing to do with your business? Or why are you paying for, your kid's trip to Disney World or whatever with your business when that has nothing to do with your business?
Yeah, very true. I mean, it's just honestly, it's I think it's really, really important, and to go over these things. And y'all, I know this is probably not the most fun money episode that you're gonna listen to. And I cannot stress how important it is to know these things. If you truly want your business to thrive and you truly want it to go, you have to, these things that are stressful, if you take care of them now, then they don't become stressful later. And I can't stress enough how important it is to have this information. Excuse me. And to have someone on your team who can help you determine what it is you need to do for your LLC, whether you're filing as an S corp or not, but for your LLC in your particular state, because they're going to be able to help make sure that you are following the guidelines, and they're going to be able to say, okay, no, you shouldn't do this. Now, I am going to state, it doesn't matter what state you're in, commingling is out. That literally, that is the first thing that they will look for. And I've had many people tell me that, and a lot of them are like, okay, Lisa, help me. I'm hiring you because I think I've been doing some of the things I shouldn't be doing. And that's one of the first things we do, is we make sure that I help them create their money roadmap. And as their fractional CFO, I am helping them make sure that their personal stuff is coming out of their personal and their business is coming out of business. And I make sure that it's running smoothly, and those things aren't happening because it's so important. So I just really, really want to, I can't not stress it enough
No.
because it's just, don't be one of the ones like me who finds, or some of the other people who finds out that they should have been doing this, and then you go and have to hire an attorney and all of a sudden it's affecting your cash flow because you didn't decide to put money up. It doesn't have to be an extreme amount, but still put some money up and keep a few thousand aside. And even if you can't do that immediately, you can still start putting money up. Okay. I don't care. Starting is the key. And that's where I really want to stress that. I didn't immediately put $2,000 aside. I started at an amount and I'm continuously putting it aside until I get to a figure I'm going to be happy with, but I'm still putting money up. Okay. I'm still putting money up for that particular thing. And it's going to be set aside for that. Whether it comes, if it doesn't come, great. There's still money there for whenever it may come. And I just think that's really, really important.
No, it's true. I mean, like we were talking about earlier in the broadcast, it's part of your budgeting process, and you have to budget for it. I mean, it's not a luxury; it's a necessity because you're going to run into issues at some point down the road. And like I said, whether it's legal, regulatory, tax, whatever, where you're going to have to pull out your records and show them to a third party, and you want to make sure that those records are legitimate, clean, with no blemishes on there or any crazy stuff on there. So you want to do that from the inception, so you don't have to, go through an audit or go through a lawsuit or something and figure out, well, I guess I should have, filed my annual corporate report. I guess I should have, paid myself a salary as opposed to just taking it out of my corporate bank account and things like that.
Yeah, very much so. Very true. Very true. I appreciate you being on my show. Thank you very much for being here. All of this stuff is really good, huge gold nuggets. And I just think that I hope that you pull out what it is you needed and you really listened, because I think it's really, truly important that you know what's required. Okay. If you're an S Corp, there are certain things that are required that, like Matthew was saying, you're supposed to be on payroll. That is an IRS rule, period. You're supposed to have payroll, taxes being taken out, not just an owner distribution. If you're an LLC and you're not filing as an S Corp, then you don't have to. But you still need to show a transactional of how you're paying yourself, not commingling the funds. That's really, let me stress that's truly, truly important. Having money put aside for legal fees is just smart. Having a business attorney who you have a relationship with and who's there to help you is just smart, because you never know when that may come about, and you want someone that knows your business and that you can trust. So if you get anything out of that, I hope you take that information from that. And just remember that all these things have to do with your money, because it could cost you so much more later down the road if you're not taking care of these things now. So thank you very much for being on my show, and my sassy listeners. Remember, until next time, stay sassy. Bye.
Thank you, Lisa Marie.
Thanks for joining us this week on Cash and Sass. Check us out on social media and on our website at www.thesassywealthcoach.com, where you can download my free Money Story Start Guide. The website again is www.thesassywealthcoach.com. And as always, subscribe to the show to catch every new episode and leave us a review so we can continue to bring you fresh content. And remember, yes, it is possible to have sassy and sexy money. See you next week.